Welcome to episode 500 of Things VTubers Say. As today, once again, we return to talking about Nijisanji. Specifically, Nijisanji English, the VTuber agency that once counted Zaion LanZa as a part of their roster. But as you may recall, back on February 8th of this year, had placed her on a temporary suspension, at that time giving 3 bullet-pointed reasons, and then a month later, on March 10th, issuing out this notice of her termination alongside 12 reasons as to why they made that decision, also all bullet pointed. Later that same day, we would hear from her fellow ex-wave mates, taking to stream one after another like a non-stop drip feed, beginning with Kodaka Torihime, then Meliko Kyoran, further Hex Haywire, and lastly, later that day, Vermilion. The only one of that wave, that being Ex-Soleil, who did not talk on the matter, was Doppio Dropside. But days later, another Nijisanji English talent, Finata Ryagu, would also talk on the matter unprompted during an entirely different stream of her own. But now, finally, 2 months later, we have properly heard from Zaion LanZa herself, but not from her Nijisanji account, oh no, but instead from her prior life account. As before her time in Nijisanji, she was known as Sayu Akami, who very much specialized in Genshin Impact streams, prior having streamed 1,684 hours of this single game. And now at 10:56 p.m. Eastern, 7:56 p.m. Pacific, on a Friday night, this ex-Nijisanji talent would take to Twitter to give us one girl's story, then linking to this twitlonger that then linked to a Google document. The twitlonger beginning with, "Hello, regardless if you knew me or not, I am and always will be Sayu," even though in the past hour she has changed her name on Twitter. This ex-Nijisanji talent then beginning to speak in third person, or at least alluding to her Nijisanji self with, "I wish to tell the story of a girl named Zaion who has made mistakes, was shamed online, struggled with mental illness, and simply wished to belong somewhere." Stating further, this entire document's purpose is to give context to what happened, not to make excuses for Zaion's mistakes or to encourage harassment of any kind to any party involved. Zaion does not absolve herself of the mistakes she did make and wishes to apologize to her community and those who were truly her friends behind the curtains for letting them down in any way. Several things are omitted for legal reasons. Please also understand that taking screenshots and keeping receipts was not something Zaion ever kept in her mind until things really started to go south, and not with the intention to attack the company or anyone in it. The Google document does have a lengthy introduction that we'll get to in just a moment, but skipping ahead, we did want to address this point. Here on page 11, it says, "I'd like to preface this by saying I do not want any third parties to use what I'm about to reveal or twist my words in any way to damage the reputation of Nijisanji or its livers." And of course, that's just fine by us, as we'll essentially just be reading this verbatim while providing context when we can. The document begins saying several of the allegations written on her termination were due in part to the differences in cultural background between Nijisanji, an agency based in Japan, and Zaion, a streamer catering to a global audience. None of her VODs were privated by her decision. She did not believe in hiding her mistakes in this way and always wished to own up to them. Thus, this document's purpose. Once the news of the temporary suspension was made on February 8th, clips were then shared of Zaion making jokes about Shotas, with many believing that this Nijisanji liver was self-identifying as a Shotokan. The document continues with, "On the Shotokan topic, this was a long-running joke stemming from before she was Zaion, coming from her origins as mainly a Genshin Impact streamer. Those who do not play Genshin, that would be me, and maybe only me, wouldn't know this. But in the game, several of the meta units were characters that had the appearance of young boys. They were mostly expressed to be quite old, such as one being several thousand years old, another being 18 plus, and the ones that were 17, regarding them, Zaion has never made any sort of implication towards them." This document clarifying further, "She is not at all attracted to them in any sexual way and is appalled at the idea. Nijisanji also never brought this up as an issue throughout the course of her employment." So once again, Nijisanji English never brought up the issue of Shotas. The document also makes clear that Zaion agreed that separating would be the best for both sides, but the parties were not able to reach an agreement on a joint statement. statement. While attempting to argue for a more peaceful narrative than the termination statement Nijisanji wished to make, Zaion did get written confirmation that Nijisanji had no intention at the time to cut off or discourage her from interacting with or remaining friends with other Nijisanji livers. She also confirmed that Nijisanji would not avoid commissioning or working with any creators that work with her in the future. This image then being linked, apparently being from an individual from Nijisanji, stating regarding interaction with Nijisanji livers, we would not stop or forbid you in this, and for creators who will work with you in the future, we will not avoid to commission with them because of that. Thank you for your understanding. So once again, this content creator trying to make very clear that Nijisanji will not hold a grudge against those who will interact with her, even if they are still within Nijisanji. The document then takes a very major turn, talking about the topic regarding the harassment and doxing of Zaion, stating she has been doxed down to a home address, name, and face by those expressing malicious intent. And this being the primary reason why we have, up until this very moment, not talked about this particular ex-Nijisanji talent's prior life, as within the hour of this termination notice, so-called Nijisanji fans immediately began doxing this ex-talent. And we are talking full address, face reveal, everything. Those doxing tweets being spammed across numerous retweets of this notice, and with Twitter.com allowing some of those accounts to still exist. Further, it was made clearer that this was all happening even before the termination, with the document stating this happened right after her indefinite suspension on February 9th, and Nijisanji did not communicate that it would take action against the doxers. There is substantial video and written proof of threats, including death and swatting. However, links will be omitted for legal reasonings. The document makes a point to remind us all that back in December of 2022, Nijisanji released a statement declaring their efforts against doxing and harassment. Despite that announcement, Nijisanji did not inform Zaion that it would be taking action against the spread of personally identifying information of her, including also defamatory misinformation and daily harassment, all while she was suspended as an active liver. Sayu/Zaion saying, I admit I did not understand exactly what victims of harassment went through, how mentally and sometimes physically damaging it is, and how hard it is to get any kind of help against it. Personally, I'm grateful for this experience so I can properly understand and empathize with others regarding this type of treatment. And now we have the second portion of this document, statements and allegations, going one by one across all 12 of the bullet points that Nijisanji presented in the termination notice. The first reasoning that Nijisanji gave was using a copyrighted song in her stream without prior authorization. Sayu/Zaion saying the vague usage of copyright infringement claimed here by Nijisanji is actually referring to a December 18th, 2022 stream when Zaion chose to play the first cover song release of one of her gen mates on stream to support them by showing her own fan base. So once again, this is a copyright regarding a cover song that one of her gen mates had just produced. Zaion was not aware that this was considered a breach of copyright and was corrected by staff and told to request specific permission for this in the future. Zaion did agree to this and apologized thusly for her mistake. However, this still remained on her record, as once again evidenced in the official termination notice, and was also one of the reasons for her first suspension during New Year's, that we'll refer to as the quote-unquote New Year's suspension. So yeah, just to back up for just a moment, this particular talent said they were going on a break, this all occurring around the New Year's time of the year. But as Nijisanji had admitted for the first time ever in their termination notice, this was actually a suspension, saying in order for Zaion to reflect on her actions, we suspended her streaming activities in January 2023, at that time confirming that yes, Nijisanji does issue stealth suspensions, now leading to massive speculation about any break of any Nijisanji talent, whether it is legitimate or actually a suspension. And now, the second point, revealing internal information that can potentially cause issues for stakeholders during her stream. This statement refers to the instance in Zaion's last Good Job stream, where she spoke about permissions regarding playing Hogwarts Legacy on stream. And yes, this document actually links to backed up archives of Zaion streams. Let's go ahead and see if we can take a listen.
Did I reconfirm Hogwarts perms? No, unfortunately. Well, I mean, we did have them, but like the thing is with like all the controversy stuff, it's a little bit risky to play. I personally actually don't care, but no, not for everyone else, right? Like I don't want to like drag down like the company and whatever else. Like just because I don't care, I don't want to drag everyone else down with me. So I'm like kind of forced to wait, which is fine. I get them wanting to wait and see. Maybe we can see if it's not too bad, but until we see.
The alleged mistake here was that Zaion stated that they did have permission to play the game at some point. Zaion spoke about this like any other game they had gotten confirmed permissions on that was a publicly released game, and this was after staff requested that EN not play the game. So here we have it, full confirmation that Nijisanji had requested of their talents not to play Hogwarts Legacy, or at least those in Nijisanji English to our knowledge here. Zaion recognized that the controversy around the game is a difficult topic. Oh yes it is. As here now we have the third point, making statements that could lead to speculation or leaking of internal information using social media accounts that she personally operates during her activity suspension time. This is referring to two instances. First, as Zaion was forcefully locked out of all of her accounts during her second suspension, she resorted to using her past life, prior life Twitter account. Once again, that is the account that has posted this document. She did make the mistake of liking a random reply that she was browsing through and did unlike it after realizing her mistake. It was not her intention to bring attention nor imply anything, but the mistake was made. Zaion did apologize profusely to staff and explained her mistake. For context, we do know her past life, prior life account did like this particular comic, with her engaging in a dark humor club and alluding to those outside of this club being toxic snowflakes. Second, this also refers to Zaion's previously owned Discord server's admin. Once again, gonna read that again for you. Zaion's previously owned Discord server's admin making a post about how production for mousepads that were owed to previous subathon supporters were finally being made. No intention to sell these as merchandise products was ever emphasized. However, this could have been perceived as her planning to leave the company and hinting fans at doing so. Zaion did explain the situation in a voice call to staff. However, after claiming that they would, quote, check the facts for each of these instances, they still listed on her termination letter, quote, showing absolutely no signs of remorse for her behavior. Zaion then actually provides an excerpt of the cancellation notice, this being reasonings provided to her from Nijisanji for the in full termination. This part stating, however, on February 9th of the same year, immediately after your suspension with your past life Twitter account, which is prohibited to use, that part is important later, you quote unquote liked a tweet mocking the fans who were angry at your inappropriate behavior as a virtual liver, and you made an announcement through the admin on your past life Discord server that the production of your past life activity merchandising had resumed, showing absolutely no signs of remorse for your behavior. So once again, in review on this third point, liking a tweet mocking fans that are angry at you on a past life account is an instance of showing absolutely no signs of remorse as per Nijisanji. And once again, a full confirmation that using a past life Twitter account is prohibited to use, even though once again we have numerous instances and knowledge that current Nijisanji talents in EN and in the main branch absolutely use prior life accounts and alternate accounts on Twitter. And oh boy, it's point number 4. Offensive remarks regarding discrimination and sexual assault. Zaion confirming this also refers to two separate instances. First, on the topic regarding sexual assault, Zaion felt horrible that she made this mistake. This refers to a joke made during her stream of the game The Karaoke. A lot of streamers, Zaion included, turn on a streamer mode in their brains to try and keep several hour streams constantly lighthearted and entertaining and making a joke out of everything that goes on. Unfortunately, she forgot the situation of the space she was in and made a joke that was inappropriate. There was no malicious intent, and she takes full responsibility. Comment was not aiming to make light of sexual assault or its victims, since it could not be said at the time. Zaion apologizes for this. This particular issue also being pointed out by Hex Haywire during his stream on the matter of Zaion's termination. Hex sharing that he was previously a victim of sexual assault himself and did not find this at all funny. The document continuing on. Second, regarding any offensive remarks involving discrimination, no serious remarks were ever made towards any specific people or culture. There is one instance in Zaion's second ever live stream on December 11th where a viewer jokingly asked her if they could use the term Zionist as a fan name for her community. She clearly stated, quote, "I don't think we can do that," in response, knowing full well that it was not her place to use such a term. Unfortunately, Nijisanji characterized Zaion's nervous laughter when addressing this viewer's comment as, quote, "remarks mocking political or religious beliefs" in her termination letter, even though this was not the case. Next, we have the fifth reason from Nijisanji, stating several infringements of the rules pertaining to the use of games defined by any color, including intentional infringements, and repeated false justifications given to any color regarding these infringements. Sayu/Zaion saying this may be referring to several items. First, a stream on February 4th that was a Nintendo game. Zaion had many successful Nintendo streams in the past leading up to the stream on the 4th, complying to rules which will not be stated here. However, on the 4th of February, Zaion made a mistake. YouTube has an autofill function for its video descriptions. She used it that day and missed the adjustment of part of the description and was notified by her manager as such midstream. Her manager adjusted it for her. Zaion thanked them for that and apologized for her mistake. Okay. Second, regarding the Final Fantasy XIV account in use. Simply put, Zaion made a choice that was not what was agreed on, and thus this was completely the fault of Zaion. The rumor of Zaion using mods is false. Hello. And now we have this next part clarifying what staff at Nijisanji wanted was a new character upon a new account. New accounts require the game, along with subsequent story skips or level boosts, to all be officially bought from the Square Enix store in order to participate in the content that Zaion had readied. No form of compensation for this or for new Genshin or other game accounts was discussed. So once again, to be clear, while prior she was very much a Genshin Impact streamer, she also had logged 242 hours as a Final Fantasy XIV streamer. Zaion at the time using a prior character, as we have been told by other sources in this Final Fantasy XIV stream. And while Nijisanji wanted her to use a new character on a new account, they were not providing compensation for this new character or new account for either Final Fantasy XIV or Genshin Impact. Document continues. Zaion regrets that she had a poor lapse in judgment. She chose to use a character she already had that simply had little to no logs. While she changed the character name and no past life issues came up, she did tell her manager she would make a new character and did not. She explained this to staff and apologized for her lack of compliance with this. All right, for point number 6, we have expressing her will to perform streams using illegal games, also referred to as pirated games. Document continues. This seems to be taken out of context as well. Zaion did reply to a chatter saying that she used to play ROM hacks, which is technically a pirated form of a game. She recognized in retrospect that ROM hacks are technically piracy. It was a violation of company policy. By the way, Things VTuber Zaion does not agree with that statement that ROM hacks are technically piracy, as there is actually legal precedent to the otherwise. The document continues to say, Zaion recognizes that piracy does go against company policy, which is why she's never condoned piracy nor streamed emulated games. This comment, as well as Zion's answer, was cut out of a VOD on December 11th per staff's request. Next, we have point number 7. Oh man, there's so many of these. Comments that can be considered offensive to the rights holder of a game during a stream. Speculation had been running around that this was referring to comments that she had made about Raid Shadow Legends, who had and still continues to have sponsored streams with Nijisanji English, but is also, of course, a giant meme. Turns out it wasn't that game at all. No. This was referring to a stream where Zaion was playing Uno. Don't you have Uno? Ubisoft's multiple user interfaces results in it being incredibly difficult to change a username, so she criticized the game for not being user-friendly. And yes, once again, in this document, she continues to criticize the game for this very issue. Which now begs the question if during this particular collab between Takanashi Kiara of Hololive English, whether the Nijisanji talents were sweating bullets, as during the collab, Uno was not playing nice, and the group had to change over to Gartic Phone, leading to Kiara to voice off about the problems, the very well-known problems regarding this version of Uno. And now point 8, giving false false, hello again, information to other Nijisanji EN livers regarding the contents of her communications with Any Color Incorporated. This is only referring to a misunderstanding regarding Zaion using her Genshin and other past life gacha accounts. Zaion did not tell her genmates that, quote, she was told that using her old accounts would be okay. She merely told them that, quote, she was not told in the interview process that it was not okay. This was conveyed to staff as well during their discussions about using past life game accounts. And Zaion was not aware until receiving this cancellation notice that this misunderstanding existed. Again, we are given more insight into this cancellation notice document, apparently given to Zaion upon her termination, referencing back on December 20th. In addition, you falsely told other members of your unit, XLA, that the use of your previous live account was permitted at the time of your employment interview. So once again, a major misunderstanding on the part of Nijisanji, and perhaps on the part of the other Nijisanji livers in XLA, as this particular point was brought up a few different times by the members of XLA and their streams regarding the Zaion LanZa termination. Next, we have number 9, falsely claiming to have received permission from Any Color Incorporated after a viewer commented on Zaion performing an action prohibited by the rules. This may refer to Zaion opening her YouTube memberships after checking that all her membership perks were within the rulings of Nijisanji. She had gotten the emotes and badges approved by her manager and thus assumed that as long as her perks were also within ruling, she could activate them for Christmas for her fans after they had asked. She apologized to staff for not asking for their approval. So again, another point admitting that she had apologized, a reoccurring theme here, likely attempting to underscore that there was remorse on the part of these actions. We also have point 10, falsely claiming to be sponsored by a brand during a stream. You are not going to believe this one. You simply will not believe this point. The Cats Organize Neatly stream that was done by Zaion had a running gag where she commissioned an artist to make her an asset of a bag of nuts labeled D's Nuts. Ha, got him. Many jokes were made over the stream, including, quote, oh boy, I really love D's Nuts, or yeah, I've been supporting D's Nuts for a long time now, etc. And in actuality, she was not sponsored by the pre-existing D's Nuts brand that was not known to her existed when the asset was created. The document making some type of point here with falsely claiming to be sponsored is wrong because D's, with a Z, D's Nuts is not a brand. Nevertheless, she was asked by her manager to private the VOD for the reason that they felt that she was claiming to be sponsored by the D's Nuts company during this bit, and she apologized and complied. So yes, this is a real brand. No, we have not seen any precedent that D's Nuts is going after people memeing about D's Nuts, much in the same way that we are unaware of Ubisoft pulling permissions for those that may critique or criticize their games. But again, those are game permissions, an entirely different topic. Now quickly switching to light mode for a moment to show just a quick screen cap provided in the document from this stream. And back to dark mode we go with point number 11. Giving likes to comments falling under defamation of Nijisanji livers and Any Color Incorporated using social media accounts that she personally operates. The document states, this is inaccurate in some capacity. Only one like was given on accident to a single tweet which Zaion liked on her private account during the time she was suspended in February. She was not aware that this had happened until it was mentioned to her. However, Zaion does not excuse herself from this mistake. The like tweet was an image post of a crude meme created by a community member that was in support of Zaion's content style, but Zaion did not like comments making negative statements due to the harassment, and the document is clear. She means death threats and doxing caused by the suspension announcement. Zaion overlooked her accidentally giving a like to the image. Zaion apologized to staff profusely for this mistake and strongly tried to emphasize it was not her intention to do so. And very lastly, for the last point, number 12. That's right, it was a full dozen from Nijisanji. Numerous other actions and comments infringing the contracts and rules. Sayu/Zaion simply responding, this statement is too vague to comment upon as there are no specifics that can be mentioned. However, it suggests that Zaion committed other wrongdoing. The document continues on with their important conclusion. In their last call between Zaion and Nijisanji, Zaion begged for them to consider a more more professional approach to feature commentary between the two sides. To this, Nijisanji refused, stating they quote-unquote needed to protect their brand. Some of the allegations written are untrue or uncontextualized, which negatively impacted Zaion's character. Zaion agrees with the decisions. She did make mistakes and agreed that separation was appropriate for both sides, saying further, I believe that there were a lot of things provided without proper context that negatively impacted her character. In the end, Zaion wishes things could have gone differently. Some Nijisanji members have spoken about Zaion's termination, and she wishes to avoid giving context on that here, as she does not wish to direct harassment towards anyone else. That aside, Zaion sees this as a huge learning experience and sincerely hopes everyone can move on from this chapter. The second part of this document goes on to document Zaion's first involvement with Nijisanji to her last, asking, I want to ask everyone to put themselves in Zaion's shoes for a moment in the present. As a content creator who has been doing this full time for over a year, way before joining Nijisanji, it's hard going about your day, supporting your friends on Twitter multiple times every single day and reading their content as you used to. Then, with the suspensions and termination happening, you're told you must obey the silencing contract. But what this results in is suddenly being blocked or unfollowed by several people who you have considered to be your friends or who you've cared deeply for a long time. People who knew her as a person and still cared for her in return are even harassed for caring for their friend. Zaion became increasingly afraid of hurting the few friends she had left and avoided many of them completely. She still doesn't know how some friends feel about her now. She still lives in a constant fear of making everyone feel uncomfortable just by being around them. Zaion was someone who was always incredibly excited to spend time with her friends IRL at cons and would go out of her way to do so. The constant cycle of guilt and trauma drove Zaion to a very dark place and still does. There were people that she trusted and told her struggles to. Some understood, and some understood this as her gaslighting or guilting them when she confided in them. It's true that most of them didn't really know Zaion as a person, but it's not fair that the simple way they knew her is now forcefully replaced by this storm of complicated and strong words that don't actually have her in them. It goes without saying that the characters we play online aren't the full us. You can't assume how bad someone feels, how sad they are, just because they play a happy character online. Seiyu/Zaion says, just speaking for myself, what banner I'm under or what character I play never changed my own style. I did read as much as I could about what everyone was saying, be it on YouTube news videos, hello, various posts on Twitter, posts on my YouTube account, or yes, even DMs sent to my Twitter. I want to make it known that I read every Twitter DM and just about every YouTube comment. After everything, Zaion felt like a failure. She felt like her dream and who she was at her core was now ruined because of this experience. She did desire to end her own life, but each and every kind message pulled her back from the brink. Without all of you, a person would no longer exist. Some of her stories will be omitted for legal reasons. Please respect this. We then begin the timeline proper regarding the August Nijisanji interview, wherein Zaion, or at the time not yet Zaion, was asked about her current monthly income. Document stating, when I received the first email asking me to interview with Nijisanji, I confirmed a time slot that they had already listed as an offer and waited. However, I realized that the day of that I still didn't have a link to the online interview call. Their email had stated it would be with Microsoft Teams. Exactly 4 minutes before I was meant to be on the call, I messaged them again to ask for the meeting link. And 2 minutes after the confirmed meeting time, they sent me a new email with the link. The interview itself felt fine. There were 2 people on the call. It felt like they were asking me questions based on the answers I gave, which made me feel like they were listening and did care about the person I was. There wasn't any information told to me regarding specifics of their company, like how they ran things differently from other VTuber or talent agencies. Things like being able to use my current social media or streaming accounts forever versus simply for a short amount of time, being unable to use any current game accounts or allowing certain ones, etc., etc. None of that was included in the interview. It was a simple interview. What was interesting came at the very end, though. I had mentioned that I previously had a job at a tech company. One of the interviewers, who hadn't said a single thing until then, asked me in Japanese how much I used to make as an independent streamer. I told him how much from subscriptions, sponsorships, etc., and he responded with, Then immediately following that, he asked how much I used to make at my tech job. I answered that I actually made less than I currently did as a streamer. He gave me the same, and then then said he had no further questions. I thought, well, if they're gonna ask questions like that, then I'll ask one that I wasn't sure if I could ask. And I asked, quote, do you guys have a monthly salary or minimum per month that you pay to your talents? The interviewer answered, no, but I can tell you that if you sign under us that you'll make more than you're making right now. I'll never forget that, but at the time, the compensation structure was not discussed. Fast forward to the 21st of August. I made it through to the final interview with the CEO. Any color only has one CEO, so we are assuming that it is the man himself. This was the only time in the entire time I had been there that I would get to even see his presence in my or the talent's vicinity, let alone speak with him. He asked questions that I thought were very good and well thought out. Things such as, what kind of character do you want to play? To which I answered, I'm usually the anti-hero. I like saying things that make people laugh or surprise or shock them. I love getting reactions out of people. He also asked how much I wish to act for my future character on stream. I said that depends on how much content the company and I end up expecting of myself. If I do shorter hours per day, then of course that makes it easier to keep up a persona further from myself. If I do longer hours like I'm used to doing, however, then it would be easier if I was just being more myself. Again, nothing regarding how they ran the company or what they expected me to give up was mentioned. Moving forward, we have the October prep, in which a debut song is asked to be fully recorded before even hearing Genmate's voices. Fast forward to October. They messaged me back saying that the debut song for my generation was ready. They requested that I record my lines and turn them in within a week. This would be our most important song, yet at this point, I had not even met my Genmates or known what they sounded like. I asked them to push the deadline back because I would be gone at TwitchCon. The new due date turned out to be after I would hear my Genmates' voices for the first time, but that was all the knowledge I'd have. After I submitted my recordings, they messaged me back saying the producer said my recordings were no good. NG, no good, due to some background noise, and that I would need to go to an actual studio to record my lines or clean them up. So I asked a friend who dabbles in DJing as a hobby to clean up the same audio files for me and submitted them again. At this point, I received no more updates on the song, so I assumed they were fine. And next, we're in November, debut planning, organizing, and managing. Around the end of October is when we finally were able to start planning for our debuts. I had experience debuting as a VTuber for my own activities, so I was familiar with all the elements needed and how to manage planning with all the different people I'd worked with. Regarding the question of what was needed for the debut and subsequent streaming activities, the managers informed that, quote, nothing is really required. It's up to you how much or how little you want to have for it. So again, in review, the managers, plural, with Nijisanji said, nothing is required. It's up to you. Zaion then saying, I personally incurred the cost of planning a successful debut. Our lore was written by ourselves. I had to find people who had the skill sets needed for the graphics and animations myself and pay for them myself. By the time we debuted, I was already hugely in the red in order to plan and execute a debut befitting of a talent of such a big company. So to our understanding from this statement, no budget of any kind was provided to the livers for their debuts. And we are very aware that is a common occurrence of giving soon to debut talents some form of budget. Next, we have meeting the other Niji EN livers. Zaion saying they were incredibly kind, considerate, and immediately included us and made us feel like one of them. I will never forget their kindness and how much effort they put into being there for us and each other. Unfortunately, things did change as time went on, but that was not until the very end. And here we are. It is December 2022, wherein Zaion is given a manager who was a 2-week-old hire. Zaion saying, for me, I see a manager as someone who helps us strategize and build upon our own style of content and character personality. But that was far from what we got. The manager they assigned to manage our whole generation of 6 talents was someone who was a 2-week-old hire. It was not the manager who trained us for the whole month of November, with whom we developed a bond, nor the person who worked with us through the onboarding. Anytime I had a call with our manager to discuss something, their manager was also on there. And it was pretty much just me asking him stuff while she sat there and nodded her head. Oh man, I want that job. If there was something I wished to do or something I thought was worth fighting for, it felt like it wasn't fought for. All I experienced was the expectation to bow your head down and not to question the system. All right, and now we have debut week 1, in which Zaion says, here's where things started to fall apart. Just to double check, I asked my manager if I could use my Genshin account of nearly 3 years. This game was huge for me. I had a long-standing relationship with the game as a content creator, and it was a significant part of my career growth. I would stream that game multiple times each week on Twitch as an indie, and it was my comfort place. And this had to be very obvious to Nijisanji, as that was by far the most common content that this talent had before joining Nijisanji. Several other talents in the E and branch were also streaming while using game accounts they owned before joining the company. Even though the precedent was there, I was trying to see if there were any other rules they wish for me to follow, and my manager said, and we have this screenshot, "Hello Zaion, for your Genshin stream, if you are using an account you were previously using when streaming Genshin, please make sure your user ID is not visible, or change it if possible. Thanks a lot." That's it. That's the message. Statement continues, and thus I covered my ID and we had an incredibly fun stream. Most corporate streamers who play Genshin on stream are usually newer players who try it because their viewers wanted to, inexperienced players, or just doing it because of a sponsorship. So many fans expressed how enjoyable it was to see someone play who actually cared a lot about the game and played it seriously. It's an honor for me to represent that. However, not long after the stream had concluded, I got another message from my manager. "To Zaion LanZa, sorry for the sudden change. However, it has come to our attention that you might have fans from past life activities as friends in your account and are able to receive in-game prizes and items from friends through this account. For more clarity and the consideration of every liver's safety, we have decided that the use of past life accounts would be strictly prohibited. Therefore, if you would like to do more Genshin streams, it is necessary for you to create a new account." Again, I am very sorry about this. However, according to this decision, we will private your Genshin stream VOD. I hope for your kind understanding and cooperation. Document continues to say other livers are able to use their past accounts, and I was not. I had a 2-year-old account I wish to use, and a lot of content planned for my future streams centered around it. This does seem to be a case-by-case basis in Nijisanji English. We have seen other livers not able to use their previous accounts in other games, but also, from time to time, bring about older accounts. Zaion continues saying, having the stream VOD from that day privated also meant that I could no longer earn money from new views on it, and consequently stunted my growth analytics because as one of my most successful streams, it was no longer visible content to the public in my debut week. Fans were asking me where that stream went, and I wasn't allowed to tell them what happened. We'll repeat that. Zaion was not allowed to tell her fans what happened. Many people attacked me for using my old account, which I had received permission to use, then had taken away, saying that it was, quote, my fault for probably using it without permission. My manager and their manager told me to tell people that it was like a peek into my hard work of the past, and now I'll start something new together with my new fans. And that's the lie I painfully ran with. Again, that is the terminology used in this document. That's the lie I painfully ran with. Zaion continues, I did my best to argue for the rights to use that Genshin account, saying that this was not the term I entered the company on, and that plenty of other talents in the company used and still were using their old accounts. I had a call with my manager and her manager, and they told me that the reason I couldn't use my old account now was, quote, because they existed before Zaion LanZa did. Then I said I could not agree with that, and we had a second call, and nothing changed. Finally, I told my gen mates what was going on, asking them for help. Since some of them had past accounts, they were also under the impression that they would be able to use them. We all had a group call with the two managers. Once again, the narrative was changed. The managers said that they would consider past game accounts on a, quote, per game basis, and approved of a game that my gen mates wanted to use. When mine was brought up, they said, quote, it's because you were an official Genshin content creator, and that counts as a sponsorship, and you can't use accounts that were previously sponsored. Zaion says this expanded the scope of the matter beyond just my Genshin account. But first, I rejected that claim because in the official rules for being an official Genshin Impact content creator explicitly states that it does not count as a sponsorship in any way. Official Genshin content creators do not get paid for creating Genshin related content. Also, in preparation for joining Nijisanji, I purposely did not reapply for my position as an official Genshin content creator, and thus I hadn't been part of the program for 2 months. Then the manager said, quote, "But you were a pioneer for the game, so a lot of the people know that account." This was yet another completely new argument from them. This normally would hold no weight because no single Genshin account can be distinguished from another. Every account is able to get every character, every item, every outfit. Nothing is unique except for the user ID that could be hidden. At this point, I had my suspicions about their real reason, and I gave up on arguing any further. So I moved on to my other game accounts such as Alchemy Stars and Guardian Tales because I had been sponsored by those game companies twice each, and I greatly enjoyed working with them, and we had a great working relationship. I relayed this to my managers, and they said because those accounts were sponsored at any time in their existence, I could not use them here. I felt like I was being punished for my past success. Prior to hearing this, I was under the impression that Nijisanji would be happy to have someone who had been on good terms with several other companies whom they also worked with. Funnily enough, one of those Alchemy Star sponsorship events was with two of their own EN talents who are now my senpais. As you can see here from this document, that was Shu Yamino and Alban Knox. Painfully switching into light mode to show the graphic provided here, once again with those two Nijisanji EN livers. And now we're moving into debut week 2, entitled Reaching Out for Help in DMs to Managers and Being Suspended for It. At this point, I had messed up in several ways, including playing my Jinmate's cover without realizing I couldn't, showing a stranger's face in a Twitter post on my stream by accident, etc. I was having a hard time not messing up, and I felt horrible about it. I suffer from clinical depression and have been going a little while without meds at this point. At this point, I felt incredibly trapped. I felt like I couldn't fit in, and my content wasn't welcome. I felt like I was a failure. So I reached out to the two people who had onboarded us at the start. They were not our direct managers, but they were people who I trusted and felt comfortable with. I DM'd them stating how bad I felt that I kept making mistakes, that I didn't know what to do in order to continue being creative but not infringing on one rule or another. I DM'd them saying I was sad, asking if there was anything that could be done about my Genshin account, and saying that overall I just felt uncomfortable. And one of them responded. The person who trained us was someone I loved a lot, and it seemed like everyone did. She was kind enough to have a voice call with me and talk through my feelings and issues, and even offered to try to fight for the Genshin account issue. That was enough for me. I knew that it was a difficult thing with a company that big, and I didn't have any expectations past her just trying. I was incredibly grateful that I just had someone in the staff that I could speak to. But we would never speak like that again. In a call between my manager and their manager, I was told my New Year's suspension and that DMing a manager was one of the reasons I was being suspended. I felt hurt and shocked. Even my Jinmates had said they DM'd managers before. I hadn't said anything that would hurt anyone or was a secret, but that was that. We now move into the New Year's suspension, this being from December 31st to January 9th. Demanding a 2-week break so early into me being here was way too long and detrimental. Even as an indie, the longest break I had taken was maybe 1.5 weeks. So during the call in which I was told of my forced suspension, I begged my manager's manager and asked if we could please reduce it to 1.5 weeks. He thought for a moment and said, quote, "Can you really come to a serious decision within that time of whether or not I wanted to stay in Nijisanji?" And I said yes, because even before this call, I had already been thinking about this since debut. I know he was trying to pressure me into agreeing to 2 weeks, but after working so hard on my own for over a year, I knew how breaks go. You get used to doing nothing and you get lazy. I wouldn't let myself get into such a habit after all the struggle. Finally, he acquiesced. At the end of the call, my manager's manager asked me what I'm going to tell my fans. This was asked in a manner that made me feel pressured to say, oh, I'm just going to say that my family asked me to come on a last-minute holiday trip. Because of what happened with a prior graduation in the company, I had already been told by my senpais that oftentimes suspensions would be disguised as breaks by the talents. Now I understand why. Many speculations as to just what talents that is referring to. Feel free to leave a comment about who you think that was referring to in the comments below if you'd like. So yes, at this point we have the talent here in Nijisanji telling their manager's manager about the effective lie that they will be telling their fans in regards to an upcoming suspension that they'll be actually saying is a last-minute holiday trip with her family. The document continues. So the New Year's countdown that I promised my fans fans, of course, could no longer happen, and I told them that my family rarely does anything out of town, so I had to go on this last-minute trip, that I would be gone from the 30th and return on the 10th. That never happened. I just stayed at home and tried to see if there were any IRL friends around who didn't already go on vacation elsewhere or weren't too busy. At that same time, Haku, one of my 2 cats, 4 years old, was suffering from a liver disease that required me to feed him every few hours, so it would morbidly work out that I had the time to take care of him. However, it was incredibly expensive, and even now, I'm still trying to pay off the incurred bills. Next section, trying to lay low. Upon returning, I turned down the creative ideas a notch. In an attempt to reduce the risk of breaking any more rules, I only streamed games because I knew which had confirmed permissions for sure. No just chatting or creative streams, at least for a while. That was the plan, and I stuck to it. Trigger warning, we have a pet death, as here we have on February 7th of this year, Haku's death and the ending to this. Sayu/Zaion saying, I had been taking care of my cat, who had been suffering from liver disease for a month. He passed away the day after my indefinite suspension began. I did not feel supported by my manager when I shared this information. The subsequent distress that compounded by the fact that staff had locked me out of all of my accounts, forced to sit in all of this alone, this would be one of the most difficult times of my life. Everything past this is history. There was a lot I enjoyed about being in Nijisanji. There were a lot of people I looked up to, who I liked, who I trusted with all my heart. There were some really fun times. But as much as I wanted to stay and how hard I tried to do something different each time I messed up, I knew I wouldn't be able to compact my style of entertainment into what they wanted without regrets. I feel that I need to say that during my time there, I felt trapped, felt like a failure, and did not feel like staff cared about me as a person or for my own creative style, as the managers I was forced to work with did not show an effort to understand me beyond the surface of our work relationship. I am still incredibly grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the friends I did get to make there, and I'm grateful that a place that had such history saw value in someone like me at all. Thank you for reading. I've learned a lot from this and hope we can close out this chapter here. Trigger warning, last picture with Haku below, and Sayu/Zaion would then provide a picture of her holding the paw of her now deceased pet. So there we have it, the words of Zaion LanZa regarding her termination, now confirming and revealing many points about Nijisanji, such as playing a Wavemates song can be considered a copyright issue, along with talking about permissions on certain games is a no-no. We have confirmation here that Nijisanji is looking at past life accounts and their activity, other issues and possibly misunderstandings as to what constitutes discrimination, numerous issues with using past life prior game accounts, absolutely zero tolerance for any mention of emulation, along with an absolute fear of God when it comes to Uno, even more miscommunications with what is said between talents being used against Zaion here as a reasoning for her termination, needing to approve the opening of memberships on a channel, further needing permission for D's nuts, along with revelations about stealth suspensions, what is then told to fans, and the inner support for the talents in Nijisanji. So now with her side of the story out there, where do we go from here? Many wondering if Nijisanji will issue another statement, or whether they'll even take legal actions against their previous talent. We ourselves have much more to talk about Nijisanji, including the reactions to this particular side of the story, but that is for another day, as that is all that we have for our 500th episode of Things VTubers Say. Thank you once again for all of your support over these hundreds of episodes now. Once again, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. Send in your VTuber news to our Discord as we record live on twitch.tv. Seriously, YouTube audience, get over here. We're having a lot of fun. And we'll have more Things VTubers Say for you soon.